Welcome, everybody. Here we are for our next presentation. I'm pleased to introduce ErinRose Widner from Verizon, and she's going to be talking about leveraging open caching for last mile delivery. Welcome, ErinRose.
Thanks so much, Wes. Good afternoon. Hi, my name is ErinRose Widner. I'm here with Verizon Business Group, and I'm here to talk to you today about leveraging open caching for last mile delivery. So as we get started, the thing to think about is how media companies have been growing their direct-to-consumer business and how that ecosystem is really needs to enable content delivery over IP-based networks to continue to evolve and become even more critical. So in order to gain efficiencies in this process, media technology providers want to better leverage each component in the content delivery path. So this new open caching standard enables a move away from proprietary systems while still supporting an environment that leverages content delivery networks, last mile providers, and streaming technologies that bring content closer to the consumer. So before we get into open caching, I want to take a step back and talk about the media consumer landscape and how we got here in terms of why we really wanted to focus on open caching technology. So by 2023, we're looking at having 5.3 billion internet users, and that's up from 3.9 billion in 2018. So that's 2/3 of the world's population is going to have access to the internet. Now, when you think about that and you combine it with the amount of devices that we have available to us, it's just like a tremendous amount of internet use, right? So when I'm at my desk at home, I probably have 4 or 5 connected devices. When I'm watching TV, I'm on my phone. I'm also on my laptop. So I think when we think about that internet growth and we think about devices, we're just really seeing that concentration of internet traffic grow. And when you look at what people are actually consuming on the internet, what they're actually consuming is video. So 80% of the internet traffic is video viewing. So some of those contributing factors to that internet video consumption are 1, improved access to the internet, 2, improved connectivity type, whether that be wireline or wireless, including 5G, and that the global average broadband speed has just continued to grow and will more than double from 2018 to 2023. So now I want to just talk a little bit about that video on demand and subscription landscape. So I'm sure some of you saw the news recently that Nielsen put out that, as of August 2022, streaming viewership actually surpassed cable TV for the first time. And if we look at this graph and really focus in on that green section, that's where streaming is. And so when, we started in 2010, there weren't that many services, but then as we've gone along, we've seen, obviously that growth, and we really expect it to stabilize by 2025 because the market is becoming much more saturated with the amount of streaming that is available. So even though we've seen a tremendous amount of growth in the last decade, it's really going to taper out at 1 billion subscriptions. So, it's just had such a large market gain. And so, as this market has grown, as streaming has grown, content providers have just really been looking at investing in content. That's been their main focus in retaining and engaging their consumers is the type of content that they're creating, the IP that they're acquiring. They're just really looking at that. They're looking at how do they, go into international markets, whether or not that's taking content, from somewhere else and localizing it, or even recreating the same TV show, but for a different country. So even though they've looked at content, because the market is so saturated, they're starting to think, how else can we differentiate ourselves to retain those customers? And that's where we start looking at that delivery, like that way that the consumer is consuming that content and making it as seamless as possible. Because I don't know about you, but I have so many subscription services personally that if something doesn't load, I'm going to load something else because I'm so behind on my TV shows that I have so much accessible to me. So it's not just about the content anymore, right? Because there's so much content available to us. It's really about how I'm able to consume that content. So that brings me to the content delivery evolution, specifically with open caching. So, for traditionally, we've really seen content being delivered via CDNs. They have a far-reaching network, but according to the Streaming Video Technology Alliance, ISPs also have a place as being part of this delivery value chain as we move forward. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the Streaming Video Technology Alliance, and previously SVA, so I have to update my slide here, but SVTA is an industry that was founded in 2014, and it's open to everybody in the online video chain. And it's really, I think the thing that's really cool and interesting about this organization is that they're just so focused on creating that best possible viewing experience for every consumer anywhere in the world and on any device. And they're also really focused on creating that best ecosystem and that architecture and that workflow to enable that best possible consumer experience. So where does Verizon fit in with all of this? So the Streaming Video Alliance has working groups, has different working groups within their organization. And Verizon, was part of their open caching working group. The Streaming Video Alliance or Technology Alliance, I should say, really was focusing on how do we leverage all the participants in the distribution chain, so content providers, CDNs, and ISPs, because they can't continue to work independently. They can't continue to work in these silos if we're all going to be focused on delivering that best possible consumer experience. So what is the Open Caching Network? So the Open Caching Network is an edge caching architecture that allows content providers and content delivery networks to utilize caches deployed by internet service providers at the edge of their network. So really what that means is that open caching allows content providers and content delivery networks to offload content seamlessly, bringing that content closer to the user. So they're caching it at the edge of the network. So here's just a high-level view of an open caching model. So the open caching working group identified 3 core components that together create the open caching network. So first we have that open caching node. And then we have the content provider CDN open cache controller. And then lastly, we have the service provider open cache controller request router. So now I'm going to get into the case study that we did at Verizon to really see open caching in play. So here we're, this was our setup, is that we actually did this on our Fios network. And then for this use case, we tested a scenario where 2 streams of content were delivered via Fios. The first stream originated outside of the ISP caches, and the second source was the ISP hosted caches. So there were a few different KPIs that we wanted to measure when creating this use case. So we wanted to do time to first byte, bandwidth, download time, total downloaded, response time, buffer, freeze events, bitrate, jitter, quality, and dropped frames. And these were the results of of our test. So you can see that there's the origin and cache. And one thing to note before you really look at these numbers is just really keep in mind that the content that was accessed had already been cached when you're looking at that cache line. So this test was conducted on a live network with real-time network traffic and constraints. So it was really limited to performance recorded on every given instance. And we're just looking at 5 tests right here, even though we did obviously more than that. So, in the test that was conducted, there were areas where we saw that the origin and cache performed equally well. And that was in maintaining the bit rate and not having freezing events. However, the thing that we really saw, where we saw 2 tremendous improvements, was the bandwidth was up to 10 times better in most cases, and the download time was 2 seconds faster in most cases. So 2 seconds. So I know that might not seem like a lot in the grand scope of things, but 2 seconds is a lot for me to decide this isn't working. I can't download this video. I'm just going to switch to another one of the streaming subscription services that I have. So we just really thought that was, a tremendous improvement and really a case for open cache. So for this paper, we really kept our focus on video on demand, but we have also done tests on live content, and we've seen that do equally well. And then additionally, when we think about open cache, it's not just about streaming video. It can be any kind of content that would be delivered on a CDN. So there are 2 things that I want you to think about when we're thinking about open cache. One is the reason that Verizon was so interested in getting involved with this open caching working group was that it's a standard and it's moving away from proprietary systems and supporting an environment that leverages content delivery networks, last mile providers, and streaming technologies, bringing that content closer to the consumer. And then the second thing is that we were very excited about how do you improve that consumer experience? How do you make that best possible viewing experience for the consumer? And that's really by leveraging the edge of our network with open caching. So thank you.